Hi everybody, welcome to week 6 of your research class. We are moving right along, so let's see what we've got this week. All right, so I am actually recording this Wednesday night, so you will be seeing it Thursday, and hopefully by the time you can see this video, I will have finished all the backlog of grading. So everybody should know, you can look at your grades, should know where you stand in the course, and then we can move forward. So I think it'll be good. All right, so let's talk about a few terms we're going to throw around this week. We've got hypothesis and null hypothesis. Now, if you think back to your BSN research course, we've got hypothesis is what you are predicting will happen in your study based on your literature review, the theory that you're using, and your own experience, right? So that's the hypothesis, what you believe is going to happen, okay? Null hypothesis is the opposite. The hypothesis that nothing happens, okay? Or the opposite of what you expect happens. Null basically means zero, nothing, that you have this intervention and it was a dud, didn't work. Okay, hypothesis, null hypothesis. So then we're going to look at type 1 and type 2 errors. And type 1 and type 2 errors, sometimes you can read different definitions, and they talk about the null hypothesis, and they're good definitions. But sometimes they get a little confusing. And so if you can get your head wrapped around maybe some words like false positive or false negative, sometimes those are a little bit easier to remember. And there's different things that cause type 1 and type 2 errors and different things you can do to help eliminate these type 2 errors, false positives and false negatives. We all know in tests, when we're testing our patients, we don't want false positives or false negatives. I mean, they could be really bad. What if you're doing, medical research on drugs? You don't want false positives and false negatives, right? Okay. So then let's touch base a little bit on reliability and validity. Again, think back to that BSN research course, right? So validity is when the thing that you say is going to measure something actually measures that. So we were talking about anxiety pre-cath, right? The cath lab. So if I used a tool that rated somebody's level of anxiety, let's say on a 1 to 10 scale. Well, we would want to know that if the person got an 8 or 9 on that scale, that they actually were quite anxious. Those two should match, right? And so that's one of those validity things that if you were to develop your own tool, you would have to do a lot of validity activities. So if you use a tool that's already validated, you're one step closer. So validity, it's measuring what it actually says it's going to measure, okay? For instance, let's look at fall risk. A high fall risk score. You want to use a tool with fall risk where a high score really does mean they're at high risk for a fall, because you don't want to implement all that fall risk protocol stuff if you don't have to. All right, reliability. So if you think about a reliable tool, it's one that each time it's used, it's very consistent. If I was measuring a fall risk at 10 o'clock in the morning and measuring a fall risk at 7 o'clock at night, I should get consistent results if nothing else had changed in the patient's clinical status. Okay, so it's going to measure the same thing over and over again. It's consistent. That's what really reliability is. It's consistent. It not only does the right job, validity, it does it every time, day in and day out. Okay? All right. Then there's a question about ANCOVA. And some of you are like, oh, what is ANCOVA? So a lot of studies that we look at have independent and dependent variables. The independent variable is the intervention, right? What we do to our participants. The dependent variable is what happens to them because of that intervention. Okay? All right, so with ANCOVA, what if we have more than just an independent and a dependent variable? What if we've got multiple variables? How do we sort through all that and figure out what had an effect on what and what didn't? That's where ANOVA is the lowest level, and that I think there's ANCOVA, MANOVA, there's a lot of those, but they all have the same principle when you're talking about multiple variables. So I'll be interested in seeing what you come up with after you read a little bit more about that. All right, assignments. So Wednesday night, you have turned in your CLC assignments, those research tables, and I popped into your group forums. It looked like everybody was charging ahead, and I look forward to reading those. This week, then, for your individual assignment, you've got part 2 of the critique papers, okay? So you'll be using the same articles unless I asked you to select new ones, but most of you will be using the same articles. So you're going to look under the methods section, and there's several different components to methods. You are going to answer every single one of those questions, and you're not going to get creative. You're just going to tell me what it is and tell me why you think that, okay? And you're going to put headings in your paper so I can find the stuff pretty easy, okay? And if you don't know the answer, I really want to try to give me an educated guess. Give me your best guess on what you think the answer is. I'm not just talking about pulling something out of your butt. I'm talking about an educated guess, okay? But really do your best to try to give me those answers, okay? So I look forward to seeing those. And we have Labor Day coming up. I always mess up those two. Anyway, I will be in town through Friday afternoon, and then we are going camping with a whole bunch of people. But I am coming back Sunday night, and then hopefully the weather will be nice on Monday, and I can enjoy that. So I probably will be online somewhat Friday, and then a little bit over the weekend, and then back to normal next week. Okay? All right. Well, for those of you that don't have to work, I hope you have a nice Labor Day weekend. For those of you that do, I hope you can maybe spend some time off during the week. All right, everybody. See you in the main forum.